June, and she got grand champion in Western horsemanship for Pink showmanship. Kylie Ann Berg got grand champion in consumer education, and with Mr. Grady Bice got reserve champion with the rate of 800 sheep. Ezra Borner got grand champion in his jumping figure eight for grades, 3 through 5, and her junior rapid showmanship. She got reserve champion. Isley Borner got grand champion with her junior rapid showmanship, pole weaving, and horse costume class, and took reserve champion with her horse interview in the junior category. Betty Broughton got reserve champion rabbit promotional poster. We had a lot of wonderful posters this year. Brandon Boosie got reserve champion for shooting sports, wildlife management, and also for the engineering design challenge team. I hope you all got to see the machine in action. Donald Carlson took grand champion with his breeding ducks and reserve champion in the senior poultry interview. He took grand champion in the senior poultry showmanship and also in bantam breeding ducks. Sam Carlson took reserve champion in intermediate poultry showmanship and grand champion intermediate poultry interview. And brother Ted took grand champion with his shop project. Miss Ann Christian took grand champion with her clothing and textiles clothes you buy. And she got reserve champion in home environment, fine arts, and clothing and textiles clothes you make. And Sister Leah got grand champion with her clothes you make and took reserve champion in photography manipulation and fashion review. Braden Cousins, another engineering design challenge team winner and grand champion in aerospace. Family, I'm giving you one box, and together you fill that up. So why don't you all come up? Mr. Isaac Feldkamp, got grand champion in fruit, food and nutrition, exploring the environment, and reserve champion in food and nutrition, sport class senior buck, and intermediate rabbit interview. Brother Joe got grand champion in his intermediate reserve champion, commercial breeding heifer, and prospect calf. I apologize for breaking your trophy, Addison. It knocked off the bench, but we'll get you on. Mr. Jacob Knudsen, grand champion, junior swine interview, junior poultry interview, and reserve champion, exploring animals, and junior swine showman. Sydney Gonzalez, grand champion, prospect calf, and reserve champion, senior beef interview. Miss Reagan Krampus, grand champion, senior horse interview. She's kind of laid up and would have a hard time riding her horse this year for the fair. Miss Ella Krautkramer got reserve champion, horse English pleasure, and horse showmanship in grades 6 through 9. And she got grand champion, intermediate horse interview, horse western horsemanship, horse English equitation, and horse western pleasure. Griffin Krautkramer got reserve champion, horse jumping figure 8, horse pole weaving, and horse barrel raising. And Ty Krautkramer got horse showmanship, walk trot, and junior meat goat showmanship. And I missed Miss Grace Britton. Please come forward for your plaque. Premier showmanship, which is a really hard thing to do. You have to show all the different kinds of animals in all the correct ways. So let's give her a hand for being able to do that. Jack Coons took reserve champion in junior dairy showmanship and in junior dairy interview. Siri Coons took reserve champion cow calf and reserve champion registered breeding ewes. And Susie Coons took grand champion in her intermediate dog interview, intermediate dairy showmanship, dog showmanship open junior, and got reserve champion with her dog in rally pre-advanced. Sydney Luer took grand champion with her market chickens and reserve champion with her chicken breeding pen and intermediate dog interview. And it's time for the Loverlink brothers. Lucas took grand champion with his market steer and his fishing sports. He got reserve champion with intermediate dairy showman and intermediate swine interview. Brother Peyton got grand champion overall dairy animal, intermediate swine interview and tractor, and got reserve champion, intermediate swine showmanship, and market gilts. Miss Ava McNair took reserve champion with her breeding chickens that were bantam. Aaron Merritt got grand champion junior beef interview. He got reserve champion junior swine interview and junior beef showman. Miss Abigail Miller took grand champion with her commercial breeding heifer and reserve champion with her market goat. And Brother Carter got grand champion with his engineering design challenge team project, dog rally novice, self-determined, and meat goat rate of gain. He got reserve champion in dog obedience, graduate beginner, and intermediate meat goat interview. Miss Mackenzie Mormon took grand champion with her junior horse interview and 6th class senior buck. Rebecca Morgan, reserve champion senior rabbit showmanship. Miss Sadie Mortensen did a beautiful pencil sketch for grand champion in fine arts. And the Meyer family. At one point I had a box just for your family too, but we're going to just call you up individually. Alexis Myers, grand champion Forest Resources, junior dairy goat interview, and junior dairy goat showmanship, and reserve champion in dairy goat promotional poster. Angel Myers, Grand Champion Market Rabbit, Lawn and Landscape Design, and Child and Family Development. Reserve Champion in Clothing and Textiles and in Dough and Litter. Mr. Hunter Meyer got Reserve Champion in Shop, and Mr. Mark Meyer got Grand Champion in Health. Miss Whitney Norton is one of our assistants today, and she's going to get her plaque for Grand Champion Horse, Barrel Racing, grade 10 and above, Key Race, and Jumping Figure 8. Miss Katie Olson got Grand Champion Junior Poultry Showmanship and Reserve Champion in Health, Performing Arts, and Show and Hobby Birds. Luke Olson, who I met working in the food stand this year, got Reserve Champion in the Poultry Promotional Poster and in Market Ducks. Congratulations. Mr. Sawyer Purdy took Grand Champion with his Intermediate Dairy Goat Interview and Reserve Champion Intermediate Meat Goat Showmanship. And I'm not sure which of the wrestlers is the older one, George or Ralph. Who's older? We'll start with George because he's the first in the alphabet. George took Grand Champion in overall poultry. He took champion in egg production for the white layers, and his brother got the brown layers. You know how that goes. Grand Champion in Intermediate Swine Showmanship. He also won the Jacob Strobel Sportsmanship Award, which is a wonderful recognition for somebody who handles competition well and with grace. He took Reserve Champion in the Intermediate Poultry Interview, and he got Reserve Champion in the Egg Production Brown Layers. Congratulations, George. Brother Ralph, whatever George didn't take champion in, Ralph did. So Ralph got to be champion in the Egg Production Brown Layers and Reserve Champion in the White Layers and in the overall poultry. So congratulations to both you boys. Miss Eliza Sankovitz has a long list of horse awards, but she also got Reserve Champion with her Dairy Goat. She took Grand Champion with her Elements of Photography as well. So Reserve Champion with Horse Western Horsemanship, Horse Western Pleasure, Horse English Equitation, Senior Rabbit Interview, Horse Training Showmanship, Horse Mini In-Hand Jumping Class, English Pleasure, Trail Class, Training, Senior Dairy Goat Showman, Horse Showman Miniature, Horse Showmanship, grade 6 to 8, Horse Mini In-Hand Trail, and she got Reserve Champion with a Senior Dairy Goat Interview. Mr. Eric Sankovitz got Reserve Champion Horse Showmanship, Open. Cole Schluter took Grand Champion with his Meat Goat Interview, Swine Rate of Gain, and Intermediate Meat Goat Showmanship. He also won the Reserve Champion Swine Rate of Gain. Grace Schluter took Grand Champion Senior Beef Showman, Cow Calf, and Senior Beef Interview, and got Reserve Champion with her Registered Breeding Heifer. Miss Madeline Smith got Grand Champion in Dog Agility, Elementary, Horse Egg and Spoon, Horse Western Pleasure, grade 10 and above, and Reserve Champion with Indoor Gardening, Horse English Equitation, and Horse English Pleasure. Mr. Simon Summers got Grand Champion with his Senior Sheep Interview, Weather Dam, Senior Sheep Showman, Senior Meat Goat Interview, Breeding Guilt, Meat Breedy Joe, Meat Goat Showmanship, and Meat Market Goat. He took Reserve Champion in Senior Swine Interview, Breeding Guilt, and Swine Showmanship for people in grades 9 and above. Mr. Ethan Stringy took Grand Champion with his junior class or 4-class junior doe, his market gilt, and his dairy market goat. He also took reserve champion with his dairy market goat, 4-class junior doe. Mr. Matthew Strobel took grand champion in the senior swine interview, the senior dairy goat interview, the market barrel, dairy goat, and senior swine showman. He took reserve champion in senior meat goat showman, meat breeding doe, market barrel, senior meat goat interview, and in senior dairy goat showmanship. Tegan T.G. got grand champion in his bantam breeding chickens. Miss Savannah Spots got grand champion with her junior dog interview. And Summer Bots took grand champion with Horse English Pleasure, Horse English Equitation, and those were both for grades 10 and above, and reserve champion in Horse Key Race, Horse Barrel Race, Horse Western Pleasure, Horse Showmanship, and Horse Pole Weaving. Mr. Britton Vaughn, Mr. Britton Vaughn got grand champion intermediate beef interview. Molly Malovasek took grand champion in crafts, exploring animals, and in wildlife biology. Ms. Josie Von May got grand champion 4-class junior buck and overall purebred rabbit. Chloe and Mason Watt have to share a box together. Chloe's portion of the box is much bigger than Mason's, but they both count. Chloe got grand champion registered breeding ewe, intermediate sheep interview, indoor gardening, fashion review, intermediate beef showmanship, lamb lead, and reserve champion in intermediate beef interview, clothing and textiles, market steer, intermediate sheep showman, commercial breeding ewe, and flower gardening. And what I just love about that list, about all these 3 or 4 people that got their own boxes, is they exhibit both animals and in the 4-H building. Mr. Mason Watt, not to be outdone, took grand champion on the Engineer Design Challenge team. He got reserve champion for safety, for dog display, and for citizenship. Mr. Ben Waleka got grand champion engineering design, geology, electric, and reserve champion with his market chickens and in plant and soil science. And last but not least, we have Miss Jaden White, who took champion in her senior dairy interview, in her horse hard run, in dairy promotional poster, dog agility beginner, and senior dairy showman. She took reserve champion in the horse trail class for grades 6 to 9, and also reserve champion in the horse key race, dog agility jumper 1, and a dog promotional poster. And now we have some special awards. The first award goes to herdsmanship. The 3rd place winner for horsemanship, we're doing this by species now, is going to the sheep. The sheep got number 3. And if we had a drum roll, we have one now for number 2, which is the goats. Doesn't say if it's market or dairy, so I assume they're all together. And the 1st place herdsmanship award goes to dairy. Way to go. We have some high school senior scholarship winners to announce, but before I do that, I want to just make a note that some of you received an additional award for the Soil and Water Conservation ribbon. And if you received that on your project, we'd like you to meet at the north end of the 4-H building with your parents following the awards presentation. High school senior scholarship winners. Rebecca Morgan. Leah Christian. Come on up. Donald Carlson. Rebecca, here. Yeah, you guys could all stay up here. You guys have been doing this for a long time, and people might as well recognize you as being seniors, right? Bodie Weiss. And Mr. Luke Olson. And Amy would like your picture. It's possible that we might have missed something. I know it's hard to believe that we might have overlooked one of your awards or mixed up one of your awards. If that's the case, please see Amy. If you have not filled out all of your thank you awards, because each one of your awards was purchased because some business or individual chose to spend some money on 4-H and say, we want to recognize all these young people that do such great work. So if you have not done your thank you card yet, please stop by in the 4-H building or stop by and pick up your thank you card from Amy. I think we have one last announcement just to remind you not to forget to stop at the food stand to pick up all of your delicious food. Amy, is there anything else that we need to announce? We're going to do a group photo. So if all the 4-H'ers would gather in the center part of the bleachers,